Oh God, what was the final count? 4 county violations, 13 state misdemeanors, 5 state felonies, only 1 federal crime, but of course that was the one that led to the 6 violations of the Geneva Convention, 352 sentencing years split over 46 defendants. All things considered, best summer ever. My name is Philip Grubenov. I was a camper at Camp Hope from 1993 to 1995. Yes, that Camp Hope in 95. I was a little bigger when I was growing up, and my parents were concerned. This was the 90s. Body positivity was not a thing. It was really easy to shame big kids. I mean, it still is. Kids are total assholes. But it was a different time. Anyways, my parents heard about Camp Hope, and this very creepy Southern man named Roger Johnson came to our living room to play a VHS sales tape for the camp. Who the hell even was this guy, Roger Johnson? He clearly wasn't a former camper, and he clearly wasn't related to the Bushkins. I wasn't really clear on his connection to the camp. But my first 2 summers at Camp Hope were awesome. It was a lot of fun with a lot of guys who, frankly, looked like me. And I made so many lifelong friends there. Josh, Roy, Salami Sam, Deadeye Sims, my best friend Nicholas from England, and we were in the best cabin, Chipmunk cabin, with the best counselor a kid could ask for, Pat Finley, who had been coming to Camp Hope for 16 years at that point. Was Pat kind of a dork? Yeah, but he embraced it. He was a cool dork. We all were. I mean, Roy was the only one who was actually legitimately cool, but he was the exception, not the rule. And yes, there was some focus on dieting at Camp Hope, but that was not the point. The point was to have fun without the stress of bullying or being judged constantly. And that's what vacation's all about. It's about being able to relax away from the rest of the world. Harvey and Alice were the best camp owners. We had so much fun with the lake and the go-karts. My second year there, they got the blob, which, fuck yeah, send me to the fucking moon on that thing. I came back for my 3rd year in 95, and we got a new guy in the Chipmunk cabin, this guy Jerry. But we all called him Captain, which, let's be honest, there's far worse nicknames to have. Poor Nicholas got called Toblerone for his first summer because he's European. It's not even a British candy. But speaking of chocolate, it was time to download our goods. It was like the Great Escape in Chipmunk Cabin. We had little carve-outs all over the room to hide our candy and snacks. Salami Sam always came with a full hot sopressata and a full gabagool duct taped to his back. I don't know where he got it from or how long it was taped to his back, but I swear to God, it was some of the best charcuterie I've ever had. So we go out to the main hall for the first big hiya with the Bushkins, and then they give us the bad news. Something about Chapter 9 bankruptcy and never letting someone sign your checks, and they sold the camp and now we're about to meet the new owner? And so then the music starts and this guy comes in and my first thought was, is that Dan Cortez? Did MTV Spring Break buy the camp? Because if so, that's awesome! Yes, I will hang out with Pauly Shore by the beach stage with Vince Neil. Yes, I will hang out with Salt and Peppa on the grind. Kind of weird they would be doing spring break in the summer at a camp for little boys, but yes, I would love to hang out with Queen Latifah on a pontoon boat. Spoiler alert, it wasn't Dan Cortez, it was Tony Perkis. And Tony, look, I was a very naive 12-year-old kid from the suburbs, but even I was like, is this a cocaine? Because he came in with nothing but coke energy, saying Roy was going to be a famous rap star, racist, and then saying Nicholas was going to be president of the United States, which is insane because he's from England, not South Africa. At the time, I was doing a lot of infomercials, mostly in the fitness space, and I get a call from Tony Perkis, and he says, hey, I just bought a fat camp, and you and I are going to make an infomercial that's going to make Citizen Kane puke his guts out. Which, what does that even mean? But I knew his dad was Tony Perkis Sr., the lighting king of Western Pennsylvania, so I knew there'd be a decent budget, or at least I thought so. Biggest mistake of my life. We went back to Chipmunk Cabin where some vaguely European guy named Lars is kicking out Pat. What? Granted, Pat was pushing 30, but he was our friend. And now Lars is telling us we gotta wear uniforms and he makes a weird noise when he sleeps. Lars, by the way, if you ever see this documentary in Denmark or wherever far away you're from, you have obstructive sleep apnea, you need a CPAP machine, please see a doctor. Anyways, our first day at Tony's camp was interesting. We started the day off exercising with these speed skater glider things. You gotta remember, this was after the '94 Lillehammer games, and America was still gripped in Dan Jansen fever, so it kind of made sense to me. Then we had our first weigh-in, which I was like, probably should have done this before the speed skating if you were looking to establish a baseline. But that weigh-in was weird. Calipers, before photos. Roy's butt somehow broke the camera, which I'm still not clear on how that happened. But at least we could still go swimming, which is how we learned about the Büddae System. Büddae! 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 So the Büddae System is a thing, but that's not what we were doing. We were using the Büddae System, which is a controversial Danish method for lifeguarding. Then we had the softball game with Camp MVP. It was so pointless. It's called Camp MVP because it's a sports camp. Everyone who went there was trying to get an NCAA scholarship. And most of us were not really the sports types. Most of us ended up in the nurse's office, except Deadeye Sims, who hit a home run. It bounced off a tree and hit Cody in the face. I saw it on my way to the nurse's office. I'm sorry, Cody. That was hilarious. I know I was at the game. Next thing I knew, it was nighttime. Tony searched our cabin, and Dawson, who was a Chipmunk cabin member until last summer, but now works for Tony, sold us out on our candy stash. Josh nailed Tony with the most hilarious Seymour Butts joke this side of a Moe's Tavern telephone, and then questioned Tony's manhood to his face. And that's when the weird white light happened. Suddenly it was morning. We were all awake, in our pajamas. No idea how any of us got there, where the time went. But now Josh is gone, his stuff is gone, his mattress is folded up. We tried to make sense of it at breakfast. By the way, did you know our cook went on to become the director Peter Berg? Yeah, you ever see The Kingdom? That movie's good. The cook was Peter Berg? The guy who smoked me out behind the mess hall, that was Peter Berg, director of Friday Night Lights? And I'm the one still making infomercials? Things took a turn for the worse. Lars killed the blob. They dismantled the go-karts. Lunch was canceled due to a lack of hustle. The lack of food forced us to hunt cows in a nearby pasture. Thank God for Deadeye Sims, though. The butchering didn't bother him. We all wrote letters to our families in a platoon-style montage, but we got no response. Then we had the dance with the girls' camp. Of course, I wore my best outfit, a Les Miserables t-shirt and a beret. Ah, there it is. Oh my God, still fits. Boom. Look, I was 12 and I was under the impression that women like French guys. It was clear that Tony was trying to humiliate us. But looking back on it now, those girls were just as afraid as we were. Afraid of being judged, afraid of being shamed, afraid of being embarrassed. At the end of the day, everyone just wants to have fun and be themselves. And it took Tim to show us that. Funnily enough, Tim later won a dance contest at a ski resort to help bail out a friend, and then later stopped using his middle name when he became director Paul Feig. The guy with the terrible dance moves? He directed Bridesmaids? And I'm doing infomercials in Pittsburgh? And so we got out on the dance floor, the girls joined us. I knew exactly 2 dance moves, the John Travolta disco and the Madonna Vogue. Sorry, I'm not a professional dancer, I was 12. But even Lars was getting into it when suddenly, Tony shut down the dance. And it sucked because Salami Sam was rounding first. But Josh returned later that night, and apparently his dad had threatened Tony with a lawsuit if his kid couldn't return to camp. Why his dad couldn't threaten the lawsuit about all the other stuff, I don't know, but sure. The next day, the Chipmunks searched Tony's cabin and found all the letters we thought were going home into the authorities, but Tony had intercepted. But that's also when my secret was discovered. I had shamed Dawson for selling us out. He used to be one of us. So I struck an agreement with him where I would put money in a hollowed out tree stump and then he would fill it with chips, burgers, snacks. It was a tree mail drop box. This made things very difficult at the next weigh-in. I was so done with Tony at that point, I was f***ing with him. I was like, oh, I didn't hit record. Bro, there wasn't even a f***ing tape in the camera. He wasn't paying me, so I couldn't afford to waste the tape stock. So we all weighed more than the first weigh-in, and that's when Tony got the idea for the 20-mile hike. Jerry worked it out where Pat would go through legal channels to help stop Tony's abuse, and we would look out for each other on the hike. We started the hike, and Tony started telling a story about Icarus rolling a ball of wax uphill, and oh god, poor Nicholas lost it on that one. It's Sisyphus! Sisyphus was rolling the ball uphill, and it didn't melt because it wasn't made of wax like Icarus's wings. That's why it's called a Sisyphean task, because it's pointless, repetitive, and never-ending like this bloody hike! I had never seen a British person so angry before. Meanwhile, Nurse Julie had called child welfare to report the abuse, but the earliest they could come was 2 weeks. Wait, what? You call up child services and they're like, oh, we're kind of booked up for the next 2 weeks. We'll pencil you in though. What? And apparently Kenneth the cameraman was sitting on a bunch of footage of our abuse, but he wanted $600 for it. Look, somebody's got to pay me for this. So after a certain tree branch didn't understand the assignment, Tony extended the hike indefinitely until we reached our weight goals, which is insane because who's bringing the scale out here to weigh us? So we laid a trap for Tony, first by tricking him into going face first into Josh's butt, which caused Tony to give chase and eventually fall into a 6-foot hole? I mean, not to sound too murderous, but we were kind of hoping for an abandoned coal mine. I mean, it is Western Pennsylvania. So, long story short, we imprisoned Tony in a barn. Now, should we have electrified the gate? Probably not. Should we have done the psychological torture? Probably not. Should we have tied Lars and the other Perkis counselors to trees and smeared honey on their chests? Probably not, even though it was just a deer. It still qualifies as torture. Should we have threatened Lars with work visa deportation if he didn't do exactly what we said? Definitely not. Turns out that's very illegal. You cannot enslave foreign workers. But I gotta be honest, Pat, Tim, and Nurse Julie should have done more to talk us out of the whole, kidnapping and false imprisonment thing. They were the adults in this scenario. So then Parents' Day finally arrived, and we left Nicholas to guard Tony since his parents were across the pond and weren't going to make it anyways. Sorry, Nicky. Meanwhile, Pat, Tim, and Nurse Julie scrounged up enough money to pay off Kenny for his footage. I did pickups with the fake rat and all the editing too, thank you very much. And so our parents finally saw what was going on. Granted, the rat thing was fake, but that is how we ate the cow. But then Tony showed up. I hope he didn't kill Nicholas. Oh, thank God, Nicky's okay. Then Tony started walking on broken glass to show how tough he was, but then a short left hook to the body from Jerry's dad dropped him like a sack of apples. Then Tony did some backflips and knocked himself out? And that was the end of Tony? Felt a little anticlimactic, if I'm being honest. Anyways, his dad, Papa Tony Sr., came and collected his son and apologized to all of us before turning the keys to the camp over to the most senior staff member, Pat. We had another 2 weeks of camp left and we made the best of it. We fixed the blob, we had fun, got in shape a little bit, and then it came time for the Apache relay. Looking back on it, the Apache relay was weird and problematic. Like, yes, Apache, I get it, a lot of camps in America utilize Native American names and words, but did we have to dress up as Native American stereotypes too? But then again, Camp MVP dressed up like Roman soldiers, which, like, what the hell are you even doing? Like, what does ancient Rome have to do with an Apache relay? Probably should have guessed from that they were going to blow it in the Hall of Intelligence. The first part of the relay was the obstacle course, which we knew was never going to be our strong suit. But we made up some time with Roy's football skills and Josh literally being a descendant of the Barber of Seville. Then it got to the Hall of Intelligence. I was doing an Albert Einstein bit and Lars was doing Andy Warhol, and given our accents, we probably should have switched, but I don't know about paintings. Nicholas, man. So smart, knocked the math problem out in 5 seconds, immediately identified Botticelli's La Primavera, and then named 5 US vice presidents like it's nothing. John C. Calhoun, not my favorite, but I can't name 5 British prime ministers. Nikki, you were the MVP that day. For the Grand Prix, we knew Captain Jerry was our best driver, but our go-kart was old and not even functioning until a week ago. So, we pulled a reverse John Cusack on it. Instead of putting a car engine on a boat, we put a boat engine on a car. Yeah, buddy, we one crazy summered the out of this. It was looking like Camp MVP was going to win when Jerry hit the turbo booster and pulled off the greatest car jump I have ever seen. If you gave George Miller, director of Mad Max Fury Road, 100 stunt drivers and 100 days, he still wouldn't be able to recreate Jerry's landing. It was incredible. Camp MVP was such a bunch of whiny babies. They were like, that cup belongs to us. And so Pat had Deadeye Sims throw it in the lake. Go fetch, dummies. It really was the best summer ever. And then the cops showed up and we were all put in cuffs. Tony decided to press charges, and so we were all charged with kidnapping and false imprisonment. The stuff we did to Lars was even worse because that's when the State Department got involved. And because Pat, Tim, and Nurse Julie were the adults in this situation, they faced the worst punishments of all of us. So why did none of you ever actually serve prison time? Oh my God, we got off on the biggest technicality of all. Remember when Harvey Bushkin warned us to never let someone sign your checks? Turns out that someone was Roger Johnson, a con artist who had been stealing from Camp Hope and other camps in the area for decades. The feds caught up with Roger at a motel in Laredo, Texas, where he was found with the Bushkins' money. And because it was a fraud case, it made the sale from the Bushkins to Tony Perkis null and void. It was like they never sold the camp. And because Pennsylvania is a castle doctrine state, We were technically holding an intruder captive until the authorities could arrive, which we were told was 2 weeks. Therefore, everything we did was technically legal. Except for Josh. You can't put your bare butt in someone's face like that. That's sexual assault. He served 6 years for that. I think the big lesson I learned is, which camp do you want to be at the end? Do you really want to be at Camp MVP with a bunch of bullies who aren't very bright, but they've got money and boats so they win a lot? Or do you want to be at Camp Hope, where people are maybe a little bit different, but that's okay because everyone's having a good time and standing up for each other and for what's right, and maybe a longtime foreign ally helps you win in the end? I don't know, I feel like there's a big lesson there. In the end, Jerry did become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He makes ATVs, dune buggies, and go-karts. The company is called Captain Motors. Roy went on to become a game show host. You can watch him every night on Black Jeopardy. Salami Sam became an investment banker, and he's the one who brokered the billion-dollar deal between Jersey Mike's and Blackstone. Nicholas did not become president of the United States, but he is Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK, whatever that is, so not too far off. Deadeye Sims was on the Olympic discus and hammer throw teams in 2004 and 2008. He got bronze in Beijing. We were all very proud of him. One of the other Perkis counselors went on to direct some movies too. Judd Apatow, director of The 40-Year-Old Virgin, was one of the counselors. Jesus Christ, how many big-time directors were at this camp? Watch Season 2 of Severance, directed by Ben Stiller, now on Apple TV+. And me? Well, remember how I mentioned The Great Escape earlier? Do you remember Charles Bronson in that movie? As Danny Tunnel King Walensky, whose job it was to get captured into the POW camps and help the Allies dig tunnels and escape? I spent the next 4 summers infiltrating summer camps to help the other kids there. But that's another story for another day. Well, there it is, guys, the heavyweights episode. Everybody's been asking for it. I hope I was able to do it some justice. Sorry it was so long. Thanks for sticking around until the end. Big shout out to Don Davis, our first Major Minor member. Some people had asked about memberships, and he's our first one. So he gets early access to the videos, some deleted scenes, and we'll have some member polls too to help determine which movies we're going to do next. In the meantime, you can hit the subscribe button somewhere over there. Thanks for watching, and we'll make more. All right, stay tuned.